I got to try the Quest 3. And I feel like weirdly, these colored editions were the best kept secret of this whole thing. Let's talk about it. Thanks to Meta for flying me out to New York, I got to actually try the Quest 3 about 2 weeks ago early. We got to go to these press demos, check it out, play games, see them there, see all the different accessories and additions, and it was really awesome. I felt really honored to get to be there and to look at them. Demos were supposed to only be 30 minutes per person. Somehow I got to spend over an hour in mine. I guess it was one of the last ones of the night and they were just like, go for it. And then we had some other games we got to play upstairs. Altogether, I was around the headsets for about 4 hours checking them out, but I was in the headset probably close to 2 hours getting the game. Obviously, that's not enough time to give you all the details, but we got first impressions to talk about for a while. When they first get you in there and they hand you the headset, I gotta say, you hold the Quest 3 in your hand and it feels like it weighs about the same amount as a Quest 2, but it's compact, it's thinner, and it feels a lot more solid. It just feels like all the components in it are tighter. They were like telling me how to do it on. I just wanted to get it in my hands, put it on my head. So you go to put it on, and it's different than how you tighten the Quest 2. The Quest 2 has these 2 points that you can grab with your fingers and move in and out. The new one kind of has that, but they stress with the new strap, you don't really have to touch those when you go to loosen it. You just pull on the straps like you did here, and then you can grab these new ones, but they're much thinner, they're much smaller, so they don't dig into your head as bad as these did. And of course, even though it's the same design as that strap, it does have a split here in the back, which allows it to slip a little further down your skull. Felt more like the Razor strap that we tried a while back. It's supposed to be below the back of your skull so that then the top strap is pulling that weight up off your face. Granted, it's still the same design, it's still the elasticy cloth, and I noticed into the demo a little ways, this thing was starting to cut into my ear, or you can put it on the outside of your ear, then it's pushing on your ear. Still not my favorite feature by any means. It is better than this strap, but not by a ton. You get that Quest 3 on your face and you notice right away it's a lot closer, it's a lot thinner. You don't feel like you have as much weight hanging off your face, even though it's technically heavier. It doesn't have that effect of like you turn and you just feel all this weight shifting. The center of gravity is much closer. It's more snug, but the center of gravity is closer to my face. So it doesn't feel like something's flopping like an elephant's trunk. So with that, it makes you feel like it's lighter, even though it's not a lighter headset. We kept hearing that figure 40% thinner optical stack was actually the last part of it that not everybody was saying when they were saying 40% thinner. So keep in mind that just like the Quest Pro here, it is a much thinner optical stack from the distance the lenses to the front of the headset. But then once you pack on a facial interface, I would say it seems like it was about 15 to 20% thinner overall. And it was thin enough that I noticed, like when I reached up, it wasn't something I was bumping into like normal. When I was looking back at the footage, I did notice like when I was playing games and moving, I did see the headset bouncing around, but because of the new bigger lenses, it doesn't seem like you notice from the inside. It doesn't feel like it's bouncing, like you still focus on what you're seeing, and it's great. So it left me curious because supposedly the Quest 3 is 7 grams heavier than the Quest 2. Is that because of the new strap, the new facial interface that is adjustable? If we look right here, 411 grams is what a Quest 2 is measuring out stock, no facial interface, no top strap. But we saw before an unofficial measurement showing the Quest 3 without those components on it was 392.4 grams, meaning the actual headset itself may be lighter, but now they got that new facial interface that's adjustable, it has mechanisms inside it adding weight, that may be where the extra weight is coming from. And with that, let's talk about how the new facial interface works. Now, as I talk about the facial interface here, I have a suspicion they were using the silicone aftermarket one. It didn't feel like a cloth of any sort. It felt slick and slippery. So keep that in mind. All of these impressions might be based on the aftermarket one, which would make sense that they used it because it'd be easier to wipe down and keep it clean for the next person. It wraps around like the normal one. It's on your face. The gasket on the outside of it, it feels a lot different than what we've dealt with before. It's no longer foam. It's like a rubbery gasket, kind of like a really soft silicone. It's something that doesn't absorb water at all. It's not going to absorb your sweat at all. And it feels very squishy to the touch. You look inside of that and there's a button on either side of the facial interface. And if you push those buttons, you can then pull the facial interface further out towards your face, or you can push it all the way in. It looked like it had 4 settings total. And if you get it all the way in, it gets those lenses actually really close to your eyes, or if you put it all the way out, you've got a lot of room for glasses, or if someone just prefers it being a little farther from their face. The rest of the shell is all plastic, and it does look like it still snaps in and out of the Quest 3, just like the Quest 2 one did, maybe with a few more snaps, but it doesn't look like it's magnetic. It looked like it was snapping in with plastic. With it on my face, there was still some light bleed around my nose, was the only spot. I didn't see any light anywhere else. And of course, with that, maybe if I had a bigger nose, I could fill it up, but there's nothing new inside of it to cover around your nose, so you're still gonna have a little bit of space you can see out most likely. I was surprised though the lenses didn't fog up at all while I was playing games, even when I got kind of sweaty, so maybe there's a coating on them or something. Maybe somehow some air was traveling in and out, but it didn't fog up, which was a welcome thing. Probably the most amazing part of the whole thing, when you get the headset on and you look through those screens, they look a lot clearer than the Quest 2 screens. They look a bit clearer than the Quest Pro screens even. If you looked for the screen door effect. If you like looked at the white sky and you really looked, you can kind of still see a little space between the pixels, but you have to look for it now. It is surprisingly clear. Text in the menus, everything was really nice. And I'm used to using the Pro. Like the Pro, it did have some of that weird light around the edges of the lenses, something about the way the light refracts through the pancake lenses. We've seen that before on the Quest Pro. There's just a little bit of a light rim around it. Objects, everything in games, just, looked so clear. The only time I noticed that anything was different, sometimes if I wanted to pull an object really close to my face, I found myself still closing one eye like I usually do in VR, but the graphics looked good. There was a little bit of chromatic aberration around some of the text if it was white, where you see like a little bit of other color bleeding into the white. And if you had something in the distance, like a ship with like a line coming down from it, you still saw a little bit of aliasing, a little bit of the jaggies out there. But overall, huge step up from the Quest 2 in picture, and even still a step up from the Quest Pro. The black levels, from what I could see so far, didn't look like they were the darkest. They were still a little gray, but it definitely looked better than it did on the Quest 2. I will say the resolution looks like it's definitely better than the Quest Pro, and it's gonna be the biggest thing you notice from the Quest 2. Everyone's wondering about the field of view on this. Until we get some headsets in homes and people can do real measurements, it's hard to say, but I will say it felt like it was the Quest Pro lenses and the Quest Pro field of view, which I found to be better than the Quest 2. It's not a night and day amount more field of view, but it definitely felt wider and more open. You can still see the edges, of course. I know IPD has been a big question for a lot of you out there, and so all I can tell you so far is I slid the IPD wheel all the way one way and all the way the other, and it showed a range inside the headset of 59 to 70. This is what we see on the Quest Pro, yet the Quest Pro claims 55 to 75 because of that extra wide sweet spot with those pancake lenses. People who have wider than 70 are just supposed to set it to 70, and people who have narrower than 59 are supposed to set it to 59. Hopefully we'll get some official specs on that soon, but that is what it shows inside the headset as far as range. Headset seems to have been marketed a lot as like the first mainstream headset built for mixed reality. So when it comes to the pass-through, that was the second biggest shocker. You turn on the pass-through and it's clear. You're looking through it. I couldn't find the distortions like you find in the Quest Pro where the different cameras are melding together. It looked amazing. Keep in mind, this was a press demo. They'd probably set up lighting that was well made for where we were gonna be, that was gonna help everything look good, but there wasn't any of the fuzziness in any of the dark zones that I looked at. The pass-through was shockingly good. I pulled up my phone, I could see through it, I could write a text message, there was no problem at all. The only little things I noticed is like sometimes my hands, if I moved them fast, didn't quite keep up in the pass-through, but otherwise, like when the demoer was talking to me and I was talking to her, I just felt like I was having a normal conversation with a person in front of me. The pass-through is surprisingly clear. When it comes to the actual mixed reality experience inside of it, you're seeing that clear pass-through still. It's adding virtual objects in the environment. Sometimes when you move your head around fast, the virtual object is doing its best to like anchor into your room where it should be, but you would see it kind of jitter a little bit when you moved quickly, like it didn't quite stay exactly on the floor where it was set. That was a little immersion breaking, but it wasn't nearly as bad as anything else we've experienced so far trying mixed reality. I think that the mixed reality will be something that's a surprising addition to a lot of people who are just looking for more VR. They might find that gaming in mixed reality and some of the options it's gonna bring is gonna change it for them a bit. And the pass-through, whether you're using the hand tracking or you have the actual controllers in your hand, it felt really good. The controllers, let's talk about those. The controllers in your hands feel very light. They feel very similar to Quest 2 controllers. The triggers had a little bit more pull, and it's got the haptics. It feels like the same ones from the Quest Pro with the dual motors, better feeling haptics. I really liked that, but it doesn't have the same texture the Quest Pro controllers have on them. They still feel kind of slippery like the Quest 2 controllers. And of course, now they don't have the rings on. They feel a little bit lighter. It kind of made the controllers overall feel less premium than what I was used to, because the Quest Pro controllers have a lot of weight, which will fatigue you, but it makes them feel really high quality. The analog sticks have a bit more texture around the edge. You can even see that in the original trailer. There's more texture and you don't find your thumb slipping off them. The wrist straps were basically the same as the Quest 2. They looked a little different when I looked at them, but when you had them on your hands, you didn't feel or notice any difference. I don't love the wrist straps. Everybody knows that already about me. You should have something, but I would replace them with some kind of grips. The battery door now, similar to the Quest 2, is still in the same location, but instead of having this spot that you just kind of push in to pop it open, now there's an actual button there, which I would think would make for a little bit harder of a time opening it, especially if you're in the middle of a game, which I've done so many times. Although I found in one of the most intense games, I did get one to slip open somehow. I don't know if it was because I'd been playing with the button before, but what happened? I don't know, it still slipped open. The tracking on them seemed good. I wasn't able to play Beat Saber, which is kind of the ultimate test, but even in some of the games like Samba, where you're moving the maracas really fast and dancing around, it seemed to keep up really well. The only time that I could get the controller to mess up is if I actually put it behind my back. Some of the times it still seemed to actually track it, but then sometimes it would finally fully disconnect and you'd just see the controller turning and it wouldn't be moving around. The tracking did seem better than I expected. Again, this was in a controlled environment, so keep that in mind. The impression I got of the controllers was that they were definitely about as good as the Quest 2, not quite as good as the Quest Pro, which they've said the Pro controllers you could still buy as an upgrade. Something that really got me excited though was I saw there's gonna be Meta-owned knuckle strap style straps that were there. We didn't get to test those ones out, but you can see them in the video that we took, and they basically look like they hook on through the battery door, so even early on, you could get those. The controllers definitely feel like a lateral move from the Quest 2 controllers. They feel like there's a few things that are improved, but it's not a huge step up like the headset itself and what the internals powering it feel like. We already know Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 processor. It's a big step up from the Quest 2 or even the Pro. They say it's got double the power, and it felt like it in games. I didn't see issues running even the more hardcore games that we got to check out. We know that there's going to be 128 gig or a 512 gig. Something to remember about that 128, when the Quest 2 originally launched, it was a 64 gig, and then later it was replaced by a 128. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe we'll see a 256 gig edition come down the road. And then the last thing we've heard is that there's going to be 8 gigs of RAM. The new depth sensor on the front is a welcome addition. When it goes to scanning the room, it just does it. You don't feel like you have to write any lines. You just look around and it picks up furniture, it picks up walls, it figures out a couch is a couch. The only thing is if you have like a little coffee table or maybe a person in the zone when you're setting it up, you need to wait for that person to move. You can move the coffee table, or you can also adjust it later manually. I had one game where someone had kind of been in my zone, and then later in the game, it kind of thought there was an object there where there was no longer a person. I think overall immersion with the depth sensor when it comes to setting up and playing games, it actually really adds to it. And the audio was also more immersive. I noticed that I didn't have to turn it up all the way like I usually do. The games got really loud at a lower volume, and it seems like maybe it's the same speakers as the Quest Pro. It sounded familiar like these, and it does have those thicker straps on the side, but it definitely seems like the audio has been upgraded, which I think will mean not as many people feel like they need an audio solution, because I know for me on the Quest Pro, it hasn't been as necessary. I didn't get to test a lot of music apps, so I didn't see if the bass was any better, but overall the audio definitely at least got a lot louder, which was nice because in some games I have to have it all the way up. So let's talk about the games I got to check out. I got to check out First Encounter, which is basically a tech demo. It's what you would put someone in maybe to show them what this was like, similar to like First Contact on the Quest 2. I guess we'd have to say this game is an XR game because it was mixed reality. It was VR, it was AR. You end up with a spaceship landing in the room, these little aliens are popping out. And it's kind of cool because the aliens actually know where your furniture is from the scan. So they'll go hide behind your furniture when you're trying to find them. And then as you were trying to shoot them, if you missed and you shot the wall in your room, the wall would break and you would see out into this alien world. There was a point where I just wanted to keep shooting because I wanted to see the alien world beyond it. The only thing that was odd is you couldn't break the ground. You always kept seeing your ground, but you could break the walls around. I don't know if that was due to a setting or something, but I wanted to be able to like break the whole walls and see the full immersion. And it was more like there was just all these little windows into a virtual world. Samba De Amigo was actually the game I had the most fun. That was where you've got the maracas in each hand. It's a rhythm-based game, kind of similar to like Beat Saber. You're playing this beat to it and it makes you do all these weird dance moves. I had a really fun time playing that, and I think Olivia had a fun time recording me playing it. I got to get into Stranger Things, and this is where we're gonna start to see what a lot of games I think are gonna do. It has the full VR game, but it has an AR mode that you can try that mixes in some of the gameplay elements into the real world. It used hand tracking there, which the hand tracking was really giving me problems. It wasn't that my hands weren't where I was trying to put them, but for some reason in the game they chose that like to pick up something with telekinesis, you needed to point at it when I kept wanting to open palm, so I was really struggling to grab the objects, so I kept trying to reach my palm out instead of pointing at it and then trying to grab. It was kind of a weird choice, but it's cool to see that the games are gonna have the full VR game and then these other modes, and hopefully we'll see even old VR games add these new modes. Some other weird choices in the game: when you're climbing, they chose to have you use A or X instead of the grip buttons, which I don't know why that was. I hope there's a setting to change that. But Stranger Things was cool being in that environment, seeing what it was like. From the demo that I tried, it definitely seemed like it's more of a simple game, though. It didn't seem like this is gonna be a 30+ hour tower game or anything like that. What really let us see the potential of the Quest 3, we got to go into Red Matter 2, and there was a toggle. If I pushed in the thumbstick, I could change from the Quest 2 to the Quest 3 graphics. And seeing the difference right side by side, it was impressive. The Quest 3 graphics looked as good to me as Red Matter 2 did on the Quest Pro with the foveated rendering. As we don't see any eye tracking on the Quest 3, this is without any foveated rendering. It looked that good. Everything, it was super clear, it was easy to read, the shadows, all the things that Red Matter 2 already did well, looked incredible on the Quest 3. It really felt like I was playing a PC VR game. I was really impressed by that one. Assassin's Creed was another one we got to get into and check out. This was, I think, one of the first ever Quest games that I played where it felt like it could actually be a full open world game. When you climb up on top of a building and you can see the whole cityscape in the skybox, it was like, wow, I hope I can go that far. In the demo, I didn't get to see how far I can actually go into the city, but it felt like you were actually playing inside of this world. This was one area where I did see a little bit of the resolution of the headset still when the ships are out in the distance and you can see the lines running from the sails. That's where it looked kind of jagged on those lines. And so I was like, okay, that's really showing me what the resolution limits are. But overall, the people's faces, the city you're walking through, Assassin's Creed looked really nice. It was using a fixed foveated rendering, so you still had that perspective where what you looked right at was really nice, but if you moved your eye, you could see where it was lower res around the edges, and it wouldn't let me just kill all the townspeople, which I really wanted to do. But Assassin's Creed doesn't let you do that because you're not supposed to be changing history, you're supposed to be making history. Whatever. The parkour in it was a little weird too, the way they chose, like you held a button and then it wasn't like a normal jump button. I was also hoping that maybe the final game will have some settings options for that. I also played a game called BAM. It's a mixed reality game with multiple people. I got to see what that was kind of like. It was a fun little experience. You're all sitting around, you have these little machines in front of you that you're bouncing around trying to steal the crown and hold it for long enough to win the match. That was fun, fast paced. I won the first round, which made me happy. Lastly, the accessories. The setups we tried were all stock. We didn't get to test out the accessories, but we got to see them all there. The new color options that you can swap out were really cool. I feel like that was the biggest surprise when I walked in there because we've been following the development a lot, and that was something I'd never heard were happening. The charge stand was there. It looks good. Looks like the controllers are going to sit off to the sides and probably wirelessly charge as we thought. Keeps your headset all charged. I didn't see the case sitting around. I mean, I guess that's not really that important. It's just a case. But the Elite strap itself looked very similar to the original Elite strap too. It's exciting that there's going to be accessories at launch, but of course there's going to be other accessories coming that I'll be reviewing. After first impressions, how am I feeling? I'm feeling excited. I think that the Quest 3 for any Quest 2 owner who upgrades to it is gonna feel like they've taken a big jump up. I think that for the people who did get the Quest Pro, I still think that there's gonna be a lot of cool things for the Quest 3. The pass-through is so clear that you might miss out on that, but it definitely feels like the Quest Pro makes sense that it still costs more with its features like face tracking and eye tracking if you're actually using them. Still, the Pro controllers also are much better, so if you wanted the ultimate experience of the Quest 3, it would probably make sense, get the Quest 3, get the Quest Pro controllers. I definitely feel like the whole industry is gonna start shifting towards doing more with mixed reality now that we're seeing this happen. The pass-through is so clear, the gameplay options are endless, and a lot of people are just afraid to be completely cut off from the real world. With that headset on, it just felt like you were still in the real world, but now you were adding other objects into it. Now the headset's been officially announced. We know that there's gonna be a 512, it's gonna be $650, it's gonna include some MetaQuest Plus to help sweeten that price. I know all of you out there are still gonna have tons of questions, so drop them in the comments. I'll try and answer any more that I could tell from the experience I got to have so far. I can't wait for this thing to launch, and as soon as it does, I'll be there for you doing all kinds of tests, reviews, anything I can to help you know whether or not you want to get a Quest 3. But thank you again to Meta for flying us out there, getting to see this ahead of time. Thank you to all of you for being here with me. It's because of you that things like this happen, that we get to go cover this stuff to help share it with you. So thank you again, and I will see you in another reality.